Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens. This is Jake along with Scott, and today we have headed down to, some part of Louisville, Broadway, Baxter Avenue. It's popular, it's hip, it's outside of Nulu, and we've landed ourselves at Wiseguy Lounge in partnership with Goodfellas Pizzeria to talk a little bit about pizza and bourbon pairings. Wait, there's more. It's later on in the podcast, but today we are joined by Chase Henry, the resident master of bourbon. We'll talk a little bit about what that even means, as well as Jeremiah Johnson, the Wiseguy Lounge bar manager. So thanks guys for joining this episode of the Bourbon Lens.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
It's always exciting to pair my favorite things, bourbon and food.
Food.
Yes.
Just generally
food. And now we've added pizza to it. And there's a football game on to our right, and it's just perfect. Have you ever thought about a bourbon and pizza pairing?
Not until about, 4 weeks ago when you brought it up?
Yeah, you're welcome. For anyone who doesn't do this after you listen to this podcast, you've severely missed out on the opportunity to get on the ground floor of pizza and bourbon tastings. Have you all, Chase or Jeremiah, ever thought about pairing pizza with bourbon?
I suppose a little bit, but not really until a few weeks ago when this was brought up to us.
It's like, wait, I work in a bourbon and pizza place.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
same, I've thought about cocktail pairings, without, spicy rye with, like sausage and pepperoni and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think cocktails is taking the easy road out.
It kind of is, yeah.
Cocktails is definitely taking the easy road out of this. But you got to talk about the full shebang here, right? Because it's the base spirit that makes everything so tasty. And so thanks to Kristen and your team for reaching out to us to set this up. We're excited about, talking a little bit today. So Jeremiah, from a history perspective, though, I'm going to go with you first here. Goodfellas has been around a long time. When I was in college, it was around in Lexington. But, the bar program has gotten bigger and bigger. Can you tell us a little bit about why the bar program, after successful years of being a pizzeria in Lexington?
Yeah, I think Alex and Eric, they wanted to have that, pre-prohibition 1920s, kind of feel to the speakeasy. So obviously the cocktail program would be an integral part of that, going back and, dusting off some old classics and also creating some new classics with some of the new, ingredients that have come out over the, last couple of decades, that's new.
So we have this giant whiskey program that you just talked about. So they've created this pre-prohibition era, and then you kind of need somebody to be able to tell that story. Chase, is that where you kind of come in to help tell that story a little bit?
yeah, I think in creating the bar and the cocktails, they sort of looked around and said, well, what do we love? We're in Kentucky. We love bourbon. Let's start putting bourbon in our bars. And they built their first bar about 11 years ago in Covington. And from there, they have continued that trend. They really like doing the bars with the pizza.
Yeah.
Well, and then 10 bottles turns into 100.
And then 10 bottles
turns
turns into 100 bottles, which turns into 200, which turns into 800, which so on and so forth.
Yeah. A lot of people know you're paying.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a slippery slope. But it's not that it's just bottles of bourbon that you all can procure through, off-premise and relationships, right? This is a really well-oiled single barrel machine, right? Was that always at the very beginning? Was it kind of like one of those things like it was going to be a lot of single barrels?
I think the boys had always had that in the back of their head. They thought, why go through the distributor and get all these? It's the same thing that every other, bourbon bar has. And, like you said, one barrel pick at Knob Creek per year turns into 7-8 barrel picks at Knob Creek per year, the more you do it. And they wanted to give people, a bourbon that they couldn't get anywhere else. Mm. Yeah, you can get a Knob Creek single barrel, everywhere, but you can't get a Knob Creek barrel pick that we have chosen,
Yeah.
And obviously, they all taste different, depending on the age and where they're on the rick house and, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Just real quick, what's been your favorite barrel that you've been able to pick that may still be available? Let's narrow the
Pick your favorite child.
Yeah.
Jeremiah's done way more than I have, by the way.
I've done I've done quite a few. It's always fun to go to Buffalo Trace and pick a barrel.
Yeah.
I have to say that they run a top-notch barrel program.
They do.
I have had the pleasure to do 2 Eagle Rares there and a Blanton's. I tell you what, Blanton's straight out of the barrel is fantastic. Kind of wish we could have got it without it being cut, but that's another conversation, I guess. But my favorite barrel pick probably was the Eagle Rare that we did. It was called Knife Fight, and actually we named it because a friendly kind of disagreement on which barrel to pick was happened that morning, and some knives were pulled, in jest.
Yeah.
And so we actually have a picture of all of our knives kind of like stuck in the bung of the barrel. So we called it Knife Fight.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was a fantastic pick.
Oh, I have my first Eagle Rare single barrel sitting on my table. My dad picked one up from a friend. It was like a little left in a bottle sharing. He's like, "Hey, you had one of these?" I'm like, "No." So I'm excited to try just any old Eagle Rare single barrel pick, because I think 10-year-old bourbon, you can't go wrong with that. What about you, to the relative newbie here?
To the relative newbie, yeah, the first pick I did was a Russell's, and we essentially don't have it anymore. They have a little bit here.
I do have a little
I hang on to the bottle I have at home. But I've done a couple of Knob Creek picks. I picked a rye a little while ago. I'm hoping we're getting that in soon. That I think's really good. It's got some of those lovely sort of classic appley notes that you get from a Jim Beam product, whilst being very much still a rye, which
cool.
I really like.
So Scott, we've done our fair share of barrel picks.
Yeah.
Has there been one that, like, what makes it unique to you going on a barrel pick, and like what sticks out when you?
I think it's just really who you're with.
Yeah.
It's like the experience. It's like,
for sure.
I could pick whiskeys out of a box and be like, that one tasted a lot better than the others, but it's usually like the experience. Like you said,
It really is.
people
It's
pulling
not
out
who you're
knives
picking
and
with.
joking
Yeah,
around
right,
and stuff. I mean, that's part of the story. That's what makes the story, and that's what makes the whiskey different, So
for sure.
I think picking whiskey in the middle of an ice storm in a rick house when it was 20 degrees outside.
That is true.
Well, we had
Meeting
to,
your distributor for the first time in person.
yeah, we had to, take it inside so we could even taste what the whiskey tasted like. But we still tasted,
that 1792 Foolproof is still probably one of my favorite things. I think the other thing was a lot of fun was blending our own Penelope barrel, just to like mess with the ratios, kind of be a scientist behind the scenes. And then for them to say, hey, we batched it up, and then say, this is actually really good. And they bought a couple of our bottles and kept them. So I thought that was a pretty cool experience, because that's unique, right? You don't get to blend a lot of times, right? Yeah. So it's definitely pretty cool. Chase, this is to you, right? So you come with a history of working in the industry, but you also now have this Masters of Bourbon title, right? That sounds special. Scott, are you master at bourbon?
No, but maybe one day.
Maybe one day when we get a big sponsorship. Because I'm not paying for it.
I think my son thinks I'm the master of bourbon, because he's like, what's this on the doorstep every day? And he figures it out.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this title and the experience and getting to really rarefied air, because there's not many in the world.
Yeah, I'm one of 5, which is an insane thing to say about anything, largely because I was in the first group to get to go do it. But it's through a group called the Council of Whiskey Masters, who were a bunch of people who were sommeliers, bourbon writers, experts on bourbon and Scotch and other whiskeys around the world. And they all kind of looked at each other and the way that whiskey has been growing, and kind of went, well, it's kind of in the same spot wine was 20 years ago. And we want to make sure that there are people who we can consider as experts, who are going to go out there and be able to really talk about it in a way that, we can talk with people who are also experts and learn from them, as well as maybe teach them a little bit, but also talk to people who are brand new and are excited by it and want to get into it, but are kind of nervous because it feels like this sort of scary kind of exclusive club.
Yeah.
Which, is also one of the things you guys are helping break down is say, no, it's not an exclusive club. It's inclusive. Yeah. And so it was really, that's kind of their goal. And I stumbled across them after I started here. Scotch was always my thing until relatively recently. I still love Scotch, but bourbon has become much more my focus. And I wanted to learn more and educate myself. And I kind of came across them that way. And I started doing the lower level exams. And then I went, I really want to go take this to the next level. And that was... That was an insane step to take because they model the exam off a sommelier exam. So there is blind tasting. There are essay questions. You are given a list of 20 questions to prep for, and then on the day you find out what 6 you have to write to answers to. And it's an essay style question, and you have 2 hours to do all 6. And oral exam where they sit there and they will ask you anything from any number of books and or magazines that you've been told you need to read. And it just, the tasting itself is a whole nother level, and you practice and practice and practice and practice, and eventually you get there. But it was the going and doing the exam. We did everything at Buffalo Trace, which of course is always a really, really special, cool place to do things. We got to do a bunch of cool tours. Freddie Johnson was our tour guide one day. Poured us some Eagle 17, which was always a treat. And I got to hang out with just incredible people who are extremely knowledgeable and extremely good at what they do. Both the examiners, of course, are incredible. And then, the people I was doing the exam with, I know he's your competition technically, but Mark Rucker was one of the other guys.
Here.
Was one of the other guys on that exam. So, it was just incredibly knowledgeable people. It was really cool.
Yeah. And so, talked about the inclusivity, right? Like having a pizza and bourbon type experience, right? I don't know if there's anything that's more inclusive that says this isn't your granddad's drink anymore. This is for anybody and everybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my great joys. I don't know if it's one of Jeremiah's as well, as having people come in and be like, oh my goodness, what? And then you're like, here, let me introduce you to something new. And, pizza draws people in, and then we get to help.
Yeah, not your typical pizzeria for sure. Yeah,
for sure.
People are blown away really when they come in, and they're like, they didn't realize, the extent, I guess, that we go to with like the cocktails and the bourbons and everything.
Well, for sure. And sitting where you are in Louisville, like you're right on the heart of Bardstown Road, Baxter Avenue. Like this is probably one of the most eclectic areas of the city. And so you're going to get people of all shapes and sizes, walks of life, socioeconomic status that are going to stumble in here. And to be able to introduce them to, the native spirit of not only, the United States, but really to its native son, Kentucky, right, is pretty cool, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a blast. It really is every day.
Yeah.
And even the people that come in from out of town, it's nice to work, on the weekends for like Louder Than Life and Bourbon to Beyond. There's a lot of tourists that come in, and a lot of them are new to it. A lot of them are here because they're here for the bourbon.
Yeah.
But it's always fun to just sit down and talk, and maybe tell them something that they didn't know.
For sure. So Scott, you said you hadn't been down this way in a long time, and you keep looking out the window.
There's a lot of new stuff out here.
I think that's probably one of the most interesting thing is this used to be Phoenix Hill, like the club.
Yeah.
Right. Like my parents partied in this little triangle here.
Yes.
It's almost unrecognizable. Really.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the cool things that bourbon and these areas have brought together, right? Is, from Louisvillian standpoint, like revitalization. So what do you think it is, how cool it is to see this part of town just look and feel different?
Well, like I said, it's been several years since I've even been ventured down this way. So it's just to see that stuff is open and thriving. And I mean, it's a Monday night, you know, and it's like, there's not been a second that's been, you know, slow outside, but it's like, you know, after 2 or 3 years of COVID and a lot of stuff shutting down, but it's like places like this can be successful and, you know, introduce new people to new things like pizza and bourbon. So,
yeah. So, I mean, have you seen that, you know, just like this area kind of pick up over the last several, I mean, this has been open, a year and a half, 2 years?
December, New Year's Eve actually will be our 2-year anniversary.
Okay.
Yes.
So have you seen it pick up and like energy come back in this area since you've been down here?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. There's a lot of new businesses down here that are putting a lot of more energy, you know, into the neighborhood of the Highlands. PG&J's next door is fantastic. The dog park bar, Highwire next door, you know, it was great. You know, it's a national, you know, company, obviously from Asheville, North Carolina. They do a lot of distribution. There's a couple of new hotels, little boutique hotels that have opened up down the street. Yeah, just a lot of great new bars, restaurants, you know, hotels.
Yeah. I'm excited for Louisville and what it has to offer to bring back areas like this that were once like roaring every weekend and during the day, first century. So because it's been kind of run down through this area for a long time. And so it's good to see this come back. So we've now hosted the background part of this conversation. We're going to prime you up for what's actually going to happen. So I don't know, Chase, Jeremiah, you want to walk through just kind of the pizzas that we'll be, you know, talking to tonight and the bourbon pairing, so we can get you just kind of outlined, and we'll walk through this pizza and bourbon pairing one by one, but just a little bit of background on what we will be eating and drinking.
Tonight, we did 4. A little kind of all over the place, just so we got a nice swath of, you know, what we kind of carry here. We're going to do an Angel's Envy that we called the Vito. We did a gangster series where we took some of our barrels and just named them after like old mafia bosses. So the Vito Genovese is going to be paired with the Bootlegger, which is a vegetarian pizza. It is a pesto, sun-dried tomato, mushroom, and spinach pie. We also have this is brand new, actually. I haven't even tasted it yet.
Yeah,
it just came in.
we're having an adventure.
We did it, a Sazerac rye pick. We're going to be pairing that with the Goodfella, which is basically our all meat pizza, which, you know, a nice rye, you know, kind of spicy, goes really good with, you know, pork. Yeah. You know, sausage, pepperoni. It's got bacon on it, you know, ground beef. Then we did a Elijah Craig barrel proof called John Dillinger. And we're pairing that with the Nona, which is, it's kind of a deconstructed like lasagna on a pizza. So we did, it's got meatballs on it, ricotta cheese, you know, chiffonade basil, red onion, and yep, that's it. I had to think. I was like, am I missing one? And then this is also a new one that we just got in. It is a New Riff single barrel. It is, I can't remember. I don't think we named this anything. I think it's just
I don't think it has a name.
The Goodfella New Riff single barrel. Yeah. And we paired it with a pizza that we have here called the Polly, or Polly's favorite. It is 2 kinds of sausage and green peppers and red onion.
Pizza sounds amazing.
I hope you're hungry.
Bourbon and rye whiskey, always sign up for.
Yeah.
I can't wait to dive into these. And I know this pie is going to be hot and ready for us here shortly. So we're going to take a little bit of a break here. We're going to get the whiskey poured up. Pizza's probably going to be on its way, and we're going to get ready and get back to you here shortly. Well, we're back from our first break. We got some pizza. We got some whiskey, because I can't say just bourbon, because we do have a rye whiskey. And we're starting off with a bang. We have a nice, what was the bootlegger? Is that correct?
We're starting with the Goodfella, right?
The first pizza was the Goodfella.
Okay, we're starting with the Goodfella, which is a hodgepodge of meat on a pizza, which can't go wrong that way. And we're pairing that with the Sazerac rye barrel pick that they've done. So to start us off here, I'll talk a little bit about the food, because I went right in for a bite of pizza before I did anything about the whiskey. this is a really well balanced pizza. And first of all, if you don't know anything about Goodfellas, pizza's as big as your whole body. Like that's the way you want to look at this. It's not for the faint of heart. So we're going to take down 4 quarters, which I think that would actually be 2 slices. So like we're each getting like a half a piece of pizza per slice.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. My body appreciates that. But secondly, it's got great crust. It's thin, it's crispy, all the things you would like. But we paired this with a nice rye whiskey. So since Chase was telling us that he's gotten to do all the tasting notes recently,
Yeah.
talk us a little bit about what people would expect with the Sazerac rye barrel pick.
So this Sazerac rye, it's really light. It's quite sweet for a rye, very much that Kentucky style. And you and I were talking earlier, I think all of us were, we put it up to our nose. And it's lovely. It's very citrusy. It's got this really nice big citrus pop that it goes really, really nicely with the meat. The spice goes nicely with, there's some spicy meats on here, a couple of different sausages, and of course pepperoni. And it bounces off those really well. Plus it's got some sweetness and some citrus to help kind of deal with some of that fat and grease that, makes pizza wonderful.
For sure. So Scott, first bourbon pizza pairing taste.
Yeah.
What did you think about the rye paired with the all meat pizza here?
Well, I think the important part here is too, it's a rich pizza. It's got a lot of fatty meats, but this is a lighter whiskey. Like not in terms of like body, but it's, lower proof. So it's not going to punch you in the face and then you're trying to soak it up with a bunch of fatty meats. But the sweetness really helps, like what you were saying about it cuts some of that rich spice too. And then it's got a touch of spice in it's a rye whiskey. It is a Kentucky style rye. So it's got that sweetness more.
What I really appreciated about it is because the meats are so rich, especially when we get to the crust, that citrus really kind of pops through and gives you a fresh reset on your palate. Where if you ate this, you would kind of be like, this is thick. Like this is thick pizza.
Right.
And you're like, ugh. And so I really think this is a really nice way to cut it overall. And, this is probably, I'm not saying it's barbecue pizza, but it's that kind of way when you think about barbecue, it's all the meat and flavors and aromas. Yeah. And here, Jeremiah, because you're here, what kind of cocktail would you make with a Sazerac rye?
Oh, goodness. This one in particular?
I'm putting you on the spot here.
I know, right? I had to think here for a minute. I'm not sure if I would want to make maybe like a Boulevardier with it because it is kind of light, so I'm not sure if it would actually hold up. Maybe
like a perfect Manhattan, maybe.
You could probably do like a perfect Manhattan.
Yeah.
With it, yeah.
So explain a perfect Manhattan.
Perfect Manhattan is obviously like a regular Manhattan is just sweet vermouth. But a perfect Manhattan is equal parts of the sweet vermouth and dry vermouth also.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So that obviously the dry vermouth would give it a little more. It's kind of it's kind of cliche, but I guess it would make it a little drier.
Yeah.
not quite as sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the perfect Manhattan is or perfect margarita and all that stuff like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I mean, it's good. So I'm adding a twist into this. We didn't talk about this, so I'll for the next pizza, think about what the next for the new riff where we'll be heading to next. Think about what type of cocktail we'd like. Since you are a pre-prohibition style program, we want to put your cocktails to the test and your knowledge as well.
You just pulled an audible on
I did. You know what? That's what the host can do. We can audible and we can make everyone look silly, but Scott will edit us, so it's all good. Would you say this is one of your most popular pizzas from a order perspective?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
You get a lot of people come in, they're like, give me the meat lovers. And I'm like, well, that's, it's Pizza Hut, but we.
I know what you mean. I can translate.
I know what you mean. I'll translate that for you.
Yeah.
Yes. We do have a meat lovers pizza. It's called the Goodfella.
Yeah. And it makes you feel good, fella.
Yes.
It's a good base.
Yeah, it's a great base. And so now we're going to move into like the more nuanced pizzas, right? So we're going to get into this one's got a little bit of sausage, a little bit of green pepper, a little bit of onion, and it's named
The Polly's favorite.
the Polly's favorite. I can get behind green onions and or green peppers and onions on a pizza. What do you like vegetables on pizzas? How do we feel about that?
Yeah, I kind of have to. My girlfriend's a vegetarian.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to. Yeah, I try to put vegetables on pizza, so like my son has to eat vegetables.
There you go.
It's a good idea.
There you go.
Yeah. Squeeze them in where you can.
Hey, hide vegetables. If you have children, hide vegetables.
Can you put
wherever
all
you
those vegetables underneath everything
Underneath
for
the
me?
cheese
So he can't
pick it off, right?
Exactly. He's like, "What's this crunchy thing in here?" I don't know.
Here, eat a calzone.
There you go.
Exactly.
It's just all
I'm gonna outsmart this kid one way or another.
Yeah. So we paired this with a new riff single barrel, and I'm just gonna have to say I'm gonna abstain for a second because this is the best smelling new riff that I've ever smelled. Like it's amazing. So Chase, walk us through a little bit through the whiskey, and Scott, you're gonna give us the pizza take here on this one.
Oh shit!
I'm truly tasting this whiskey blind. I've not tried this before tonight. It's fairly sweet on the nose. It's got a nice vanilla. It's got a little bit of a sort of a dark chocolatey thing going on that I quite like. I think in terms of going with the pizza, I think it fits really well.
Yeah.
With that pizza's got the peppers and the onions on it, and it plays with the sweetness of the onion really nicely, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, Scott, we're coming to you. Pizza take.
It's kind of like it balances out, like the peppers and the onions have like a kind of like a roasted taste to them.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got like this sweeter vanilla. So I don't know. I'm not too good at this, but
You're as good as you want to be, Scott.
yeah. But like to me, like the new riff, it's like vanilla bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's creamy. It's like vanilla ice cream. Like not technically, but like those are some of the notes. Like vanilla bean ice cream is something that I'm really getting with that. So it's like you've got this fresh roasted like vegetable.
Yeah.
It kind of like just, I don't know if it like balances it or what, but
Well, and so that's my thing. Like the roasted of the vegetables with the sausage, like, and then you hit that kind of sweetness curve, like you said, with the onions, and especially red onions, especially when you toast them up, they're going to get that caramelization. You're going to get that sweetness kind of come out of it. And you're going to get a lot of flavor. Depth of flavor is something that every chef talks about. This has a lot of depth of flavor from a pizza perspective, and this gives us depth of flavor from a whiskey perspective overall. And I do like your note around that dark, bitter kind of chocolate note that's in there, and that just kind of hangs around and lingers for a good while after you take a sip.
Yeah, and that I think plays really nicely with some of the green pepper and the sausage in there too. I think those kind of fit nicely.
Exactly. So, Jeremiah, you've had a little time. The audible is over.
The audible, yeah.
You've been able to procure the bar, see what's happening. Purvey the bar.
Purvey the bar, yeah.
What type of cocktail would you make to go along with this and the pizza?
Oh, to go along with the pizza also?
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. Now for the bourbon, it's at 116, a little higher proof. And also with the vanilla notes, I honestly think maybe like a Gold Rush or something.
Ooh.
A little bit of honey, a little bit of lemon would actually be really, really nice. And it would probably pair pretty well with the pizza.
I like that. I like that a lot. The onions and the peppers, it gives you that summertime feel. This feels like a summertime pizza to me as well. Something that you wouldn't feel guilty out,
refreshing.
Yeah. You might feel guilty because there's sausage on it, but I wouldn't feel guilty.
We talked about it. It's your vegetables.
It's my vegetables.
You got to get in.
I ate my vegetables. And because the size of the pizza, as we did mention, you're getting your
It's
whole
as
plate.
big as your head.
And I got a big head. Hey, ain't no shame in my game. When they say one size fits all, it's one size fits most because it doesn't fit in my head.
There you go.
It's not you.
Yeah. So we have to move into these a little bit more because the first two whiskeys have been great. Pizza, I'm never going to complain. Like cold pizza, hot pizza, doesn't matter. While we take another little intermission here, That'll light you up, just like the Elijah Craig will drink here in a second. We took a break to enjoy the pizza and the whiskey to be able to give you all our fast thoughts. So diving in first, we have an Angel's Envy pick. Their bourbon. It comes in over 100 proof, under 110.
It's this one's right at
I
110.
think we took it at the highest we could.
Right
get
at 110. So flavorful whiskey. This is with that ruby port finish, as always, that Angel's Envy's been come to known by. So Chase, I think you've had this one before. You're a little more in depth on this one. So give us what you would expect while drinking this.
Yeah, I'm significantly more the second two we're doing today. I'm far more familiar with. It's Angel's Envy. I always expect, those dark fruits, plums, dried cherries, raisins, as well as some nice fig and a little bit of a slight acidity, maybe. That's very classic port wine. And then it's just a rich, dense whiskey, which is pretty standard Angel's Envy stuff. This one, it's nice having it up at that 110 proof that Jeremiah picked this. So
I did, yes. I got to go on this one. Matt and I, our beverage director, Matt Schulte, called me up. I was moving. He was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "I'm moving." He said, "I got a barrel pick at Angel's Envy at like 3:00. Can you go?" And I was like, "Well, I'll have to ask the wife." But, and so, I left her there packing boxes.
I'll be back in like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be worth a crap when I get back.
Right, yeah. I won't say that she was mad, but she definitely probably was not happy.
Yeah.
He came home with some roses. There you go.
Yes. 4 roses to be exact. All right. So I'll talk a little bit about this pizza. So contrary to popular belief, I don't always eat meat-based pizzas, and this one's a vegetarian. So it's got pesto, spinach, sun-dried tomatoes, mushrooms, all your dense flavors. Right? This is gonna be a flavorful pie. You all both have said it's one of your favorite pizzas on the menu at any given point.
Oh, hands down.
yeah.
And the whiskey actually really balances those rich flavors. Like you got the earthy notes all coming from the pizza, and then you get the fruit notes coming from the whiskey. I think it pairs and balances nicely. And again, same standard crust. It's got a lot of flavor. It's going to hold up to a bite. I think it holds up to the whiskey because that's what it needed. This pizza needed a whiskey that had a lot of flavor. Scott, what's your impressions?
Well, like the oily pesto, like really helps the fruit of the whiskey like pop out. Maybe also the sun, the tomatoes. It's like those are a fruit in and of themselves, but it really balances with the fruit that it's in the whiskey as well.
Yeah. Did it balance with that habanero sauce?
It's a little tangy.
It's
a little tangy.
It'll wake up the palate.
Yeah.
If it wasn't already awake, you pair the habanero with a drop of the Elijah Craig, and you'll be feeling good about yourself. All right, so you've had plenty of time.
Oh, yeah.
What type of cocktail would you make with this? This one screams Manhattan to me.
Angel's Envy. It would make an excellent Manhattan. It would, with those, obviously with the port notes in there. For me, honestly, maybe a paper plane.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the little Maro Nonino in there, and the Aperol.
Yeah.
The sweetness will kind of cut through that Aperol a little bit. A little bit of lemon juice, a little citrus, round it all out.
I need it. This just makes me need to explore the whiskey cocktail side of things. As you kind of say things, and I've paper plane's been around forever. Obviously, Manhattan, Old Fashioned, Gold Rush, we're all familiar with those. But like, I don't think I've ever drank a whole paper plane. Like I've tried a sample of one. So like to sit down and enjoy it with a good base whiskey would be great.
One of my favorite cocktails.
All right,
Yeah.
Here we go. So
Awesome whiskey cocktail.
So when Jeremiah's working next, I'm gonna come down here and Jeremiah's gonna make me a paper plane. It's his favorite cocktail.
Yes.
All right. So we're rounded out. We have this deconstructed lasagna. And what's it called again? The Nona?
The Nonas.
The Nonas?
Nona's pie, yeah.
Nona's pie. And
Nona, obviously it's kind of just like grandmother.
grandma, yeah. Grandma spent a lot of time on this pie.
Yeah.
It's rich, chunks of ricotta, meatball, onion, chiffonade basil, as you said. And it's a dense pizza.
Yeah.
Like
Rich.
Like it is.
Like lasagna.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a meal. One slice is a meal.
Yeah. And Jake's had 4 slices.
I've had 2 total slices. Get out of here. I pre-gamed this. I didn't have breakfast. I knew where I was missing. Unfortunately, I also strained my abdomen, and so I can't do any physical activity right now. So this is just, it's not going good for my diet,
Which includes eating, right?
No, it doesn't stop. Eating is continuous. I can eat through pain. Lifting through pain is not an option. But anywho, we have this rich, dense pie, and we have an exquisite 10-year-old Elijah Craig private barrel, 121 proof. Let me make sure I got. Did I get all that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're 100% correct.
All right. I'm listening.
The tail of the tape.
Exactly. The tail of the tape. It punches. Like this one punches above its weight class. So Chase, round us out on here on this last one from a what to expect if I were to get this barrel pick here at Goodfellas.
It's rich. It's got a lot of toffee on the nose, maybe a little butterscotchy. It's got a nice, thick, oily mouthfeel. It pairs really nicely with this pizza. It cuts through some of that richness. That high proof cuts through that richness, and just it's got a nice, long, lingering finish. And as you were saying, it's got a great Kentucky hug. It hangs in there in the chest.
Yeah. It definitely, as Kevin Hartwood says, say it with chest. This one says it with its chest. Scott, you're my Heaven Hill expert.
Yeah, I mean, any weaker of a whiskey, you'd lose it with this pizza. I mean, you have to have something that can actually stand up to that. It's like
that ricotta. Yeah.
Even at 121 proof, which this sounds weird, that's a lower proof for Elijah Craig barrel proof, right?
Yeah, for sure is.
Yeah, our last barrel was a 136.
Yeah, amongst other giants of proof, like it stands up because it's so. The finish is just keeps going.
Yeah.
And I think butterscotch and caramel are probably the 2 most prevalent notes for me.
What I find really interesting as we've sat here and we've gone through the portfolio of pairings is it's the contrast in flavors from the bourbon to the pizza. The pizza savory, the whiskey sweet.
Yeah.
Right? It's whatever that sweet note is exacerbated. Look at me using SAT words. From the whiskey to the pizza. And that's what I think is really nice. It was like the citrus from the Sazerac balanced the pizza. The for that second one, which was the barrel proof, it was that bitter dark chocolate note from the pizza. The Angel's Envy was definitely the ruby port and the plum, and from the pizza. Now it's like this dark toffee butterscotch, just sweetness balancing with the ricotta. Like it's really cool to see it's the savory sweet balance, because that's not always the way it is with wine. And I think that's really nice that you're getting best of both worlds. So proofy cocktail, right? Now we're thinking a lot of proof in this one. How do you balance this out? Do you go
honestly on this one? I probably wouldn't even make a cocktail with it. But I mean,
if someone said
a couple of drops,
a nice Kentucky Straight ice cube, right?
Yeah. Just a large format ice cube, just to knock this, knock the proof down a little bit, and
Mellow it
chill
out
it
a
off.
little bit. Yeah.
Well, and I think what sometimes that is a cocktail enough, right? Water and time can do a lot to that. I mean, if you're adding water, that technically is a cocktail. You've made it,
sort of.
You've made it different.
Sure, why not? Yeah,
Sure.
If you shook it with the water, the one drop you put in there, shake it up.
Shake it up.
Whiskey
Stir
water.
it. Stir it. It needs to be stirred.
You need to be stirred with your drop of water. It's definitely flavorful. Now is the time. I'm not saying pick a baby. I'm saying pick a pair. We'll go around the room. Scott, I'm going to come to you first because you're my lawyer, so you're going to deliberate probably the longest.
Oh, so yeah, start with me. Give me the least amount of time.
Exactly.
I think I'm gonna go with the meats and the rye, the Sazerac rye.
Yeah.
I think that I'm not a big rye whiskey drinker, but
I know you're not.
Kentucky style rye's more up my alley.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where I'm heading.
All right, Jeremiah, coming to you next.
I'll probably go with the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, the Nona and the Elijah Craig at 121. It's I like that. Nice punchy bourbon cut through the richness of that ricotta cheese and the meatball and onion, and Yeah, I think it goes really well together.
Nice. All right.
I'm going to do the Angel's Envy and the vegetarian with the pesto.
Yeah.
I like that pairing a lot. I think there's richness and there's a little bit of acidity that brings them together, but there's nice earthy tones and like nice, rich, sweet high notes as well.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to say this as a preference. My favorite whiskey I drank tonight was the New Riff Single Barrel. I thought that was the best New Riff I've ever drank. But the pairing wise, I was down to two, the one Scott picked and the one that Chase picked here. And I'm going to have to lean the pesto one. I just think the whiskey, the balance, the plum, the raisin with the pesto, sun-dried tomato, spinach, like whole thing, the earthy sweetness. I liked it. I could dig on that. It kind of reminded me of a really nice charcuterie board, right? Where you got all those elements.
I can see that.
And bringing that in.
It's probably, that one probably has the most going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that whiskey has the most going on.
Yeah.
So I think it really combined for like a really nice dessert charcuterie.
Yeah.
Well, umami and port.
Exactly.
Exactly. Mushroom and pesto. And
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm going to ask, was this a fun experience or what?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, this was great.
This was definitely unique and I loved it.
I'm going to have to do this again.
Yeah, it's great. I do believe, we've started something here. Yeah.
I think we have.
We've definitely got more pizzas and we have a lot more whiskey to see what fits.
Flex your palate.
Yeah.
I can
kind of
flex
makes me
mine.
want to create a pizza for like
Oh man,
a new barrel.
Yeah, when we get a barrel, we got a lot of barrel picks in recently.
Right.
When they start showing up, like, ooh, what pizzas should we make to go with this?
Exactly. So this is what I hear in my future as I send an email to Kristen. It's the Bourbon Lens and Wiseguy Lounge barrel pick with a homemade Bourbon Lens pizza.
There you go.
There we go.
As long as it doesn't involve pineapple, I'm good.
No pineapple.
No pineapple pizza.
I guess we're not making anything with our Bland's pick.
Some squash blossom.
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of things like some papadou peppers. I could really do some
banana peppers. Those would rock with a couple of bourbons out there for sure.
Oh, you get a nice spicy.
The wheels
rice
are spinning.
Oh, hell yeah! You talked about food and bourbon. I'm in. So this is great. There's Goodfellas across the landscape here in the Midwest and into the South. Chase, Jeremiah, who wants to tell us where they can find a Goodfellas location near them?
We've got locations. We have two in Cincinnati, one in downtown in OTR and in Pleasant Ridge. We have one down in Covington, Kentucky as well, which is my home store. Little plug for me. Of course, we're here in Louisville, which is Jeremiah's home store. Lexington, there's a big one down in the Distillery District that has a bar, or if you're just feeling a slice, down on Mill Street is the original in downtown. Down in Chattanooga on King Street, so sort of right down in the middle of Chattanooga, we have a really, really incredible one there. The space is
beautiful store,
bananas cool. And then we've got one on the campus. It's on campus at Indiana?
Kirkwood. Yeah.
Kirkwood, yeah.
Yeah, Bloomington. There's one there on Kirkwood.
Oh, cool.
Then we got a couple up in Indianapolis, one on Mass Ave, which is
like Main Street, basically.
Yeah, and it does have the upstairs bar, and then there is another little one over there that's just by the Slice that I cannot remember what street it is on because I have not ever been to any of the indie ones.
I think.
Yeah.
Just Google it.
Just Google it. You're in Indianapolis. There's a place for pizza.
We got some listeners in there.
And we're looking at a couple other locations. It looks like the next one's probably going to be in Columbus. So keep an eye out.
Awesome. The boys are looking at Columbus, St. Pete, Florida. Honestly,
Yeah.
they're still thinking about, and then
Asheville.
Allegiant flight.
they've been talking about Nashville, Tennessee for a little while, and they've also been talking
Asheville,
about Asheville,
North
North Carolina for a little while.
Yep.
So
Hey,
just kind of looking around.
that means there's a pizza and beer episode down the line if you're going to Asheville.
In Asheville, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, we appreciate you all joining us, or us joining you all, allowing us to come down here and experience Wiseguy Lounge. It's been a lot of fun. We truly appreciate that and hanging out with Scott and I. Scott, any parting shots?
No, this has been a lot of fun. I didn't know what to expect with the bourbon and whiskey pairing, but I'll do it again.
Yeah, there we go. And let us know if you do a bourbon and whiskey pairing. Send us pictures. Let us know as you listen to this episode, because it'd be great and get us ideas for future endeavors. So we appreciate it. Thank you again to Chase, Jeremiah, and the Goodfellas team for setting this up. We really appreciate it. And as always, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. We truly appreciate it. If you want to know more about Bourbon Lens, go over to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Yes, I refuse to call it X still. Follow us at Bourbon Lens. On your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're subscribed. We have a new podcast every week. And last but not least, huge shout out to our Patreon community for hanging out with us and enjoying us. If you want to join that community, go over to patreon.com/Bourbon Lens, and we truly welcome you in like family. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.